I noticed it first as a faint vibration beneath my feet, subtle enough to dismiss at a glance. The engine hummed steadily, the tires whispering against the wet asphalt, and the highway stretched out straight and empty under a late-night sky. My foot rested lightly on the brake pedal. I hadn't touched the gas for minutes, but the speedometer in front of me twitched, then rose, almost imperceptibly at first. I frowned, glancing down. 70 miles per hour. I hadn't pressed the pedal. My knuckles tightened on the steering wheel. The tires hissed over the asphalt, slick from the earlier rain, and the headlights reflected off the wet lane markers in thin, trembling streaks. I lifted my foot completely. The needle climbed further. 75, 78. I slammed the brake, hard, and the tires protested, skidding slightly on the rain-slick surface. The speedometer didn't budge. I exhaled, shaky, gripping the wheel tighter. My hands were clammy. Something about the way the car moved, too smooth, too deliberate, felt wrong. There was no incline, no tailwind. Just the highway, straight and empty, stretching for miles into blackness. Trees pressing in on both sides like walls. I glanced at the radio. Static. The volume knob rattled when I touched it. The engine's hum seemed louder now, insistent, almost alive. Every time I pressed the brake, the speedometer climbed higher. My chest tightened. I took a deep breath and lifted my foot entirely, letting the car coast. It didn't coast. It accelerated. 80, 85. I could see the numbers rise like a countdown, and with each mile per hour, a knot of dread tightened in my stomach. I tried the emergency brake. Nothing. The pedal pressed easily, but the car didn't slow. The tires hissed, sliding over the wet pavement as though the road itself had grown slippery. My headlights caught on the trees lining the highway, their shapes twisted, elongated in the reflections off the hood. Shadows bent unnaturally, pressing in on me. I reached for the shifter, flicking it between drive and neutral. Nothing. The car responded only to the speed it wanted. I screamed into the night, but my voice was swallowed by the hum of the tires on wet asphalt, the wind rushing past the windows, the persistent low-pitched drone of the engine. The highway curved ahead, a gentle bend into a shallow valley. The car took it smoothly, silently, as though it had memorized every inch of the road. I tried to grab the wheel harder, to wrest control, but it felt like I was guiding a ghost. Steering was possible, but acceleration? Impossible. I glanced at the dashboard lights. They glowed brighter than normal, casting the cabin in sharp amber light. The numbers on the speedometer climbed past 90. I pressed every pedal, every button, even the kill switch I knew could stop the car in an emergency. Nothing. The car had its own will. The rain returned in earnest, drumming against the windshield in a frantic rhythm. I turned the wipers to high. The world outside the car became a blur of silver streaks and dark shapes. The trees seemed to sway in unison, bending toward the road, their branches clawing at the night air. I tried the horn. A single, sharp blare cut through the storm, but the car didn't respond. The speedometer ticked past 95. 100. My stomach sank. I was alone, completely alone. And yet I wasn't. I felt it then, subtle, a pressure in the back of my neck, the sense of eyes in the rearview mirror. I risked a glance. Nothing. The empty highway stretched behind me, fog pooling over the asphalt. But the feeling didn't leave. Something was there, pressing close, just beyond my vision, moving with me. I pulled at the wheel desperately, trying to slow, turn, veer into the shoulder. The tires squealed, throwing up a spray of water. The trees on either side of the road blurred, their trunks stretching, the shadows twisting in impossible ways. Then I saw the exit sign ahead. Relief, fleeting, a chance to escape. I jerked the wheel, aiming for the off-ramp, but the car didn't turn fast enough. The speedometer read 115. I gritted my teeth. No traction, no control. My hands shook violently. The overpass above the exit loomed. I noticed something in the corner of my eye. Shadows moving along the concrete beams. Long, thin, impossible. They weren't people. Not quite. Something pressed against the guardrails, following, leaning, merging with the structure. I flinched. The headlights reflected dozens of eyes, dark, wet, unblinking, staring at me from the shadows above. I slammed on the brakes again. Skid. Squeal. Nothing. The car climbed past 120. I tried the emergency flashers, the high beams, every signal, but the car responded only to its own momentum. My chest was tight, lungs burning. The trees, the shadows, the empty highway, they all felt deliberate, orchestrated. The world outside was normal, almost, but the car, the speedometer, the pressure in my chest, they weren't. I realized then that the acceleration wasn't just the car. It was leading me somewhere. Somewhere it wanted. The night stretched endlessly. Every mile per hour felt like a countdown. Every shadow on the roadside leaned closer. My phone had no signal. Nothing worked. My hands shook, slick with sweat. My mind scrambled for a rational explanation. Brake failure, fatigue, hallucination. But nothing could account for the speed, the will of the vehicle, the sensation of being watched by something beyond comprehension. I caught the exit finally, skidding onto the ramp. The tires protested, hissing across the concrete. Relief was immediate, tangible, until I looked up. The off-ramp curved upward into a bridge, and hanging from the guardrails, dozens of shoes, bright, clean, dangling from the concrete by their laces. I knew I hadn't seen them before, and the speedometer, still climbing. I tried to stop. The brakes barely registered. 130, 135. I could see them now, reflections in the wet asphalt. Shoes swinging, shadows pressed behind them, eyes staring, waiting. The car didn't want to stop. It wanted me under the overpass. I jerked the wheel. Tires squealed. My pulse thudded. The dashboard glowed like a warning. Then I woke up. Empty road. Headlights off. Engine silent. Rain dripping from the roof of the car. No shoes. No shadows. Only the lingering echo of the speedometer needle, frozen at 135. And when I checked the rearview mirror, I could swear I saw movement behind me, just beyond the treeline. Watching. Waiting. I haven't driven that road since. But sometimes, late at night, I hear the engine hum, tires whispering on wet asphalt. And I know. It's still waiting, still accelerating, still counting. I had been driving for hours, the highway stretching out like a ribbon of black silk under the faint glow of my headlights. The radio hummed with static, the occasional crackle of a distant station that faded before I could catch a word. The night was empty, trees pressing close on either side of the asphalt, their wet leaves glistening under the scattered moonlight. My tires hissed against the wet road, the engine a low, steady drone beneath me, comforting in its monotony. Then the CB radio crackled sharply, cutting through the hum like a sudden gust of wind. Hey, hey, don't take the next curve. I froze, one hand tightening on the steering wheel, the other hovering near the radio. The voice was hoarse, panicked, but unmistakably human. I twisted the dial to see if I could find the signal, but it vanished into static the instant I tried to isolate it. Who's that? I muttered aloud. No response, only the low hiss of tires on wet asphalt. I shook my head and tried to convince myself it was some prankster, someone driving far behind me. My heart still thumped in my chest, louder than the engine. I glanced ahead. The highway curved gently to the right, a slow bend in the black ribbon. There were no lights beyond my own headlights, no signs of other vehicles, nothing to explain the voice. The CB crackled again. Please, don't. The curve, stay off it. Static filled the cabin. My stomach tightened. The urgency in the voice was real, panicked, but not entirely human. There was something wrong with it. A slight echo, a tremor beneath the words, like it carried the weight of something that had already happened or something waiting. I slowed the car instinctively. My tires hissed, the engine protesting slightly. The trees loomed closer, branches reaching across the road, dripping with moisture. I could see the reflection of the moonlight in the puddles on the asphalt, stretched into long, thin streaks. Another crackle, another whisper. Please. I saw what happens. Stay, turn back. The words cut through my nerves like icy fingers. My pulse raced. I wanted to roll down the window, to shout into the night, to demand answers from a voice I couldn't see. But I didn't. The darkness pressed against the windshield, the world beyond my headlights empty and silent. I slowed further, coasting now, foot hovering just above the brake. The curve approached. My vision through the windshield narrowed, a tunnel of wet asphalt and blurred reflections. I could feel the tension in the steering wheel, the subtle sway of the car on the damp surface, and the unnatural stillness around me. No other cars, no lights, nothing but the trees and the dark. And the voice, still on the CB, trembling, urgent. I'm begging you, don't take it. I pressed the buttons frantically, trying to find the source, but only static answered. A low hum seemed to emanate from the road itself, almost imperceptible, vibrating through the tires into my hands. The curve drew closer, the edges of the asphalt dissolving into shadows, the wet pavement reflecting the treetops in distorted shapes. I slowed even more, barely 20 miles per hour now. The tires hissed, the engine idling. My headlights caught a flash, a brief glint on the left side of the road. Something moved there, but it wasn't human. Too tall, too still. Just a silhouette pressed against the shadows, indistinct, watching. The CB crackled one last time. There, waiting, under it, the hair on my arms rose. I jerked my head toward the curve. The asphalt dipped slightly, the edges of the road dissolving into a deeper darkness, and I realized I couldn't see what was beyond it. Not with headlights, not with moonlight. Only shadows, thick and heavy, pressing against the bend like a wall. My instincts screamed to turn around, to reverse, to escape. But the highway stretched endlessly behind me, black and empty. The voice, fading into static now, had left a lingering presence, a residue of urgency that settled like a weight in my chest. I inched forward. Tires hissed. The curve approached faster than I expected. My reflection in the windshield warped with the movement of the rain. Something flickered in the shadows at the edge of the bend, just a flicker, almost like a figure stepping into the faint light, but my eyes couldn't focus. The CB crackled again, weak, almost a whisper in the wind. Don't. My foot hovered above the brake. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing, the car trembling slightly, the engine's hum irregular now, subtle but insistent, almost alive. I tried to stop, but the curve approached too fast, folding the asphalt beneath me like a trap. Then I saw it, a shimmer in the shadows, like heat rising off concrete, or water pooling in unnatural shapes. It stretched across the curve in a slow, deliberate movement. I couldn't tell if it was the road, the shadows, or something else. And for a heartbeat, I understood. The voice had been real, and it hadn't been warning me of something visible. It had been warning me of what the curve concealed. I yanked the wheel, trying to veer slightly to the shoulder. Tires hissed violently. The world outside blurred, shadows stretching unnaturally, the trees bending inward like they were leaning to see me. My headlights caught dozens of shapes at the edge of the curve, tall, faceless, watching from the darkness. They didn't move forward. They didn't run. They waited. The engine's hum rose, higher, vibrating through my chest. The CB crackled one final time. They don't like the living. Static swallowed the cabin. I felt the car slow slightly, as if obeying some unseen hand. My pulse thundered. Couldn't breathe. I had reached the apex of the curve, and beyond it, I saw nothing. Only darkness, wet asphalt reflecting the faint light of my own headlights, stretching like a void. I drove past it, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the road. Nothing touched the car. Nothing chased me. The shadows at the bend vanished as quickly as they had appeared. The CB was dead, silent, static only, as if the warning had never existed. But the memory lingered, cold and suffocating. I knew the curve had been real. I knew the shapes had been there. And I knew, in the pit of my stomach, that they were still there, waiting, just beyond the reach of my headlights, just outside the road I could see. I haven't driven that highway since. Some nights, late, When the wind rustles the trees outside my apartment, I swear I hear the faint hum of a CB radio, crackling in the dark, a voice begging me not to turn. Somewhere always waiting for the next curve.